Hey crafters, Lisa here from Fun Stuff Crafts. So glad you could join me for another Inspiration Friday. So you might notice this cute scrub cap I have on. This is our project today. So I've had lots of fun putting together a pattern that I think even the newest of sewers and the most experienced of sewers can do. So this week it's all about a challenge. I challenge you guys to make these caps and donate them to your local hospital. Our local hospital put a call out for scrub caps, and of course everybody's making so many masks too. So it's just another way that we can help our healthcare workers. So I put together this pattern. It's really cute. It's got cute ties in the back, and I really hope you guys like it. And if you guys do like this video, will you make sure you give me a thumbs up? And also leave any comments down below. I'd love to hear from you. And hit that subscribe button also. If you click on the bell, YouTube will also alert you each time I upload a new video. And guess what? I try to do a new video every Friday. It's all about Inspiration Friday. So I really hope you join us. And if you're new to the channel, thanks so much for stopping by. So I'm going to change my camera angle. We're going to go straight to my sewing workstation, and we are going to make this cute cute scrub cap. But you can also make a matching mask if you want. I'll put a link to my mask tutorials down below also. So thanks again for joining me. Crafters, today we are going to work on making a scrub cap. Now I have tried out quite a few different patterns, and I have actually created my own. So this is my first shot at creating my own pattern, and so I will definitely make a link available to you guys down below in the description. This is a combination of like 3 or 4 patterns. So I will make the link down below. You guys are going to need to print it. I will provide it in a PDF. When you print it out, you are going to get 3 pages. And the one key is to please make sure you print them at full size, because that's going to be really important. Now, a couple other things. Let's just go through our supplies of what we're going to need for this project. Of course, we're going to need some material. So I've got some really cute material that I picked out for this one. We're going to need some elastic. Now this is a 1/4 inch elastic, and I know elastic is in short supply. We only need about 4 inches of it, so we don't need a ton of elastic for this. Definitely need a sewing machine or a serger, and then scissors, of course, and I've got my fabric scissors, and then I've got my paper scissors because we're going to cut the pattern out in just one moment. It's always fun to have matching thread. So I went ahead and grabbed my thread. I've got some pins. Although I'm not a big pin user, I do like to use clips. So either one of them works, but you might want to have those handy also. I also have my iron ready to use, and a safety pin, and then some Scotch tape. So the very first thing we're going to do, and this is really important, is we are going to take the pattern after you guys print it out on your printer. Okay, we are literally just going to cut the pattern pieces out. Okay, so I am just going to cut them, and the reason why we're doing this before we cut the material is we are going to piece these pattern pieces together to make the full pattern. What you're going to end up with is a top and a body of the cap. And so that's all I'm going to do here really quickly is I'm going to cut them out. I had lots of fun trying to get this pattern just right for you guys, so I really hope you enjoy it. Been making lots of masks, and so this is a little diversion. Our local hospital had put a call out for some scrub caps, and I used a pattern that I had found, but there were just some little pieces of it. I wanted to make some changes to the pattern. So like I say, this is my take on a cap. I have made some for our local hospital, and I've taken them up. So One fun thing I've seen people say is we've got so many mask makers out there is you could actually use the same fabric and make a matching mask to go with the cap. So just however we can support our healthcare workers, that's exactly what we're trying to do here. And you guys, I'd love to see what you guys create, be it masks or be it, you know, these caps. Love to have you tag me on social media just so I can see all what you guys are creating. So once we get those all cut out, then what we need to do is, this is where the Scotch tape comes in. And we've got 1A and we've got 1B, okay? And so all I'm going to do is I'm going to take them and I'm going to measure them up next to each other. Now I have tried to put little triangles to help you guys eyeball where they belong with each other, and then just take Scotch tape and just tape right along. So now we've got our first pattern piece. And then for the skull cap, or the scrub cap, I can see my triangles are off a little bit, have to perfect that a little bit. Then we are just going to tape that. So now we have got both of our pattern pieces, okay? We've got the cap and we have got the body. So now let's set these off to the side for 1 second and let's get our fabric all ready. Now our fabric, most fabric comes in a 45 inch width. Some fabrics come in 50 or 60, but I thought it would be easier when I made the requirements for this or when I put the supplies down is this is a right between 45 and 40 and 45 width of material, okay? So we are going to fold it in half, okay? It's 16 inches long or in height, okay? And so I'm folding it in half. So this is where my fold is. Okay, so I've got the fold right here, okay? And then what we're gonna do is we are gonna take our pattern piece and we are gonna place it on the fold, okay? Just like that, okay? And then the other pattern piece, we are going to not be able to place quite yet because it needs to be on a fold also. So what I like to do is I like to cut out my first pattern piece. Now, you can either use scissors to cut yours out or you can use a rotary blade. Now, this is where people would like to normally pin it down. I'm not pinning mine down. By all means, if this is new to you, definitely pin your piece down. But I'm just going to take my rotary blade and I'm going to go along my pattern piece. And I am just going to cut out. And I can already tell by the feel of my rotary blade that I'm not hitting every one of my pieces. So whenever I have that happen, I always have my handy scissors available just to cut out on those pieces that I missed. I'm hit and miss with the rotary blade. It's a new tool to me. I have not used it a lot, and so I've been trying to do it as I've been doing my mass production because I've been trying to cut out so many masks all at once, but sometimes on the bigger pieces it takes a little bit more. Okay, so there is our first piece. Now remember, we cut that on the fold, so it's an extra long piece of material. So we're going to set that off to the side just for a second. And then we've got our second piece. Now remember, the second piece calls to be placed on the fold, okay? So I'm just going to go ahead and trim off this extra piece of material I have here. And what we're going to do now is I'm just going to take my material and fold it the other way. Okay. And it just fits, you guys. Literally just fits. So let's try that rotary blade one more time. And once again, I missed a few places. So, like I said, you can get used to use the tool that's most comfortable for you. I find if I use the rotary blade, I don't necessarily have to pin it down. And it just saves a little bit of time, especially when you're making mass production. So now what we end up with is we have got the top to our pattern, and we also have the body of the pattern. Okay, so we're going to put the body off to the side for a minute, and we are going to insert our elastic first. So what I need to do is I need to measure 4 inches of elastic. So that's what I'm going to do here on my mat. So now that's all the elastic that we need that we're going to be using. Now I'm going to bring up, I've got a handy dandy little ironing board here that I can put on my tabletop. And what we're going to do is we are going to prep the material by ironing it. And then what we're going to do is produce a little casing to put the elastic through. So what I like to do is just eyeball a very small hem, narrow hem, I guess I would say. And I've got my iron already heated up. And so I'm just going to press just a really narrow. This just helps the encasing be finished off. Okay, so I pressed it just a little bit, and now I'm going to press it again. Now in the instructions, I tell you to do this at 3/4 inch. So if you want to be very precise, you can get your tape measure out and you can measure 3/4 of an inch. Okay, so then I'm just going to press that. Okay, the next thing we're going to do is I'm going to go ahead and take this over to my sewing machine. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to do a straight stitch. I am going to back stitch at the start and back stitch at the end so I can tie off my knots. And I'm just going to do it very thin next to the top of that casing, because then what we're going to do is we're going to pull our elastic through. Okay, so I'll be right back. Let me put this through the sewing machine, and then I'll show you how we're going to put the elastic in. So I've come back from my sewing machine, and you guys can see I've got a straight stitch. Remember, I back stitched at the front and the end, so to tie off that seam. And so now what we're going to do is we are going to put our elastic through. Now I like to just use a basic safety pin, and the one trick that you need to make sure you do is as you're feeding this through is not to pull it all the way through. So what I like to do is I like to get mine started, and then just when it's right there at the end, I like to pin it. Okay? And then what we're going to do is we're going to pull it through. And I told you guys to cut 4 inches, but we really only need 3 inches. So what I like to do is see where I've got 1 inch right there, okay? And I'm going to put another pin in. Okay? And really I want to put my pin in this way, because I'm just going to go run right back over to my sewing machine, and I'm going to put a zigzag stitch down either side of that, just so that way it'll stay in there and I won't take the chance of losing it. So just give me 1 second. Okay, so I'm back from doing a zigzag stitch. Now I want you guys to see this. The zigzag stitch that I did, I probably went back and forth like 4 or 5 times. So it's in there really good and tight. Okay, so now we can go ahead and clip off that excess. So I'm just going to cut that right off, set that off to the side. So we're done with the top for right now. What we need to do now is we need to work on our bottom part. So I'm going to go ahead, some of my material's just a little bit wrinkly, so I'm just going to run a press all the way down this. And then what we're going to do is we are going to do that same thing we did with the cap, and I'm just going to turn under a very thin line, and I'm going to press it. And why we're doing this is we are going to fold this up for the casing or for the hem. And again, we want it to be a finished hem. So that's why I'm doing this. So I'm just going to run that all the way down my iron. And again, it's just very, very thin. Okay. So now what we want to do is you're going to turn it towards you. Okay. This is my good pattern. And this might be a little confusing, but I'm going to fold this straight up. And I'm going to put another crease on it. Okay. And what I'm doing here is mainly what we're working towards is we're going to finish off our ties. Okay. So this is the technique that kind of changed on how the other people were making these. Okay. So I am going to, we turned over a small hem, right? Now I'm going to press this up. I'm going to take this back to my sewing machine, and I am only going to stitch. I'm going to open this up. I'm only going to stitch from here to here. So this is going to finish off my tie really nice. Okay, so I'm going to come down here. I'm going to do a 1/4 inch seam, and I'm going to come down here. I'm going to do the exact same thing with the other side. Okay, I'm going to come down, making sure that you catch on the back side. So when you put it through your sewing machine, it might be a good idea to lay it this way. Okay, so we're going to do that seam. Then I'm going to come back and we're going to turn this inside out. So give me a second. It'll make sense once we do it. I'll be right back. Okay, so I put my seam there all the way up to just past where that meets. Okay, I'm going to trim my threads, and then what I'm going to do is I'm going to cut my corners. And the reason why we cut our corners is just to make them turn really nice. Okay, so I am going to grab my other scissors, and what we're going to do now is we are going to turn this inside out. And this is going to create our tie. Takes just a little bit of maneuver. Actually, sometimes if I do that and just stick my scissors through, making sure my scissors are closed because you don't want to cut through the fabric. Then you just poke that out and you have a really nice finished end to your tie. And then I always like to pull out my corners. Sometimes I'll use a pin. I know there are tools made for it. But when you're homebound, you go with what you have. And then what I like to do is once that's been pulled through, I like to put a nice press to it. Okay. And then we're going to do the exact same thing on the other side. These really go together quite quickly after you get the hang of it. The other day I made made about 12 of them, I think, when I took them up to the hospital. And I just did each step, you know, on all 12 at a time. So like I put the elastic in all 12 at the same time, and I did this part on all 12, and it really does go really nice. Okay, so I got that all pressed through. Go ahead and put a good press. So now, remember how we pressed down that edge? We are going to want to go in and top stitch that in place. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and press it down again. So I got a nice press on it. I'm going to take it over to my sewing machine, and I am going to do a straight stitch all the way across. Okay, so it gives it a really nice finish, and that will encase our hem. The other thing you guys want to remember is the reason why you want to finish these off is this is going to be against someone's forehead, so we want to make it as comfortable as possible. So give me 1 second. I'll go ahead and put a straight stitch on that, and then we're going to hook the top to the bottom. Okay, so I've got a top stitch all the way across, and you guys, I went from beginning all the way to end. So I'm going to go ahead and clip off my edges here, or my threads here, my edges, just to make sure it's clean. I find if you clip as you sew, it saves you so much time in the end. So the next step we need to do is we're going to hook the top to the bottom. Now, how I like to do that is I like to find my centers, and my easiest way for my centers is that I just fold it in half, and I'm just going to put a pin right in that place. Okay, so I know what the center is there. Then I'm going to take and I'm going to fold the center of this cap and just mark it with a pin. Okay, taking right sides together, and I just like to start in the center and go down the sides. Now this is where I like to use clips instead of pins. So I'm going to match up where my 2 pins were, and I am going to bring my pins over here, and I am just going to start clipping. And we are just going to clip this all the way around. And this is where you've got to play a little bit with your material. You are working with a rounded edge, but I'm just going to take it all the way around, all the way down. And then that elastic should come really close to matching up with where your tie starts to round up. Okay, so I'm just going to do this again, and I'm going to go down this side. Then what I'm going to do, you guys, is I'm going to take this over to the sewing machine, and I'm going to put a 1/4 inch seam all the way around. And then if you guys have a serger, you can serge the end of your stitches. I'm going to do this total project with my sewing machine. So I'm going to zigzag and finish off my stitches. So I'll show you what that looks like when we get all done. So I'm going to take this over to the sewing machine, and I am just going to do a 1/4 inch seam all the way around. Okay, I'll come back and I'll show you what the seam looks like, and then we'll put the zigzag stitch in. And then we're going to press it, and we are just about done with our cap. Okay, so I've got a seam all the way around, okay, and I've come down to the bottom, and I've got my stitches there. So I'm going to go ahead and, just like we said, we're going to clip as we go. And then what I'm going to do now is I'm going to take it back to my sewing machine, and I am going to do a zigzag stitch where I'm just catching these edges. Okay, I just want to catch these edges to give it a nice finished look. So give me a second. Okay, so I'm back. We've got our zigzag stitch that I've got all the way around. Now, technically, your cap is done. You are ready to go. One last step that I like to do to give it a nice finished look is I like to top stitch this seam down. So what I do is I take my iron and I press the seam down. So I'm pressing it towards the bottom of the cap, and it's kind of hard sometimes to get in there with your iron, but I like to just press it down. You guys can see that here, is I've just pressed it so it is facing down, okay? And then I'm just going to go and I'm going to do a top stitch, and then we'll come through and iron this and make it look really nice. So let me just, it's like I got crazy with the iron right here. I don't want to top stitch into a seam that is creased up because I didn't iron good. So I'm going to go ahead and do a top stitch around it. I'll come back with you and we are going to be done with our cap. And we have completed our cap. You can see now, I'm not sure if you guys can see there, but it's got a nice top stitch going all the way around it. It looks very finished on the inside, very professional. Now on the ones that I've been making and taking up to the hospital, I've got some tags that say made especially for you, and I actually sew that right on the back here. But these are just cute. You can see you've got the ties ready to go. They can tie their cap, and there you are. So your challenge this week, I'm going to challenge you guys, is try making some of these caps. Reach out to your local hospital. I know that they are in need of them. We've seen lots of people reaching out for them. And why not throw a matching mask with it? The mask looks so cute. I happen to have one here that I did so we could put a mask with this one and a hat with this one. And what a great combination. So I'll make sure I show this modeled on so you guys can see what the finished product looks like on. I hope you like my first attempt at making my own pattern. Go ahead and download it. If you guys like this video, please give me a thumbs up. That really encourages me when I see that I'm making the type of video content that people are using and like. And leave a comment on anything else you'd like me to try. I've got like 4 or 5 mask patterns out there. This is my first scrub cap, but let me know what else you'd like to see. Thanks for joining me for another Inspiration Friday. And here's one more look at our finished product. And this just happens to be my trusty helper that has been helping me with all of my mask making and my scrub cap making. So here is a look at the matching mask and the cap. So again, I hope you liked this Inspiration Friday project. Make sure you give it a thumbs up, and don't forget to check out other projects on my blog at funstuffcrafts.com.